Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Joined alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. We got Tim in Green Bay. Emilio will be joining us here shortly. Hopefully he's got a shirt on. And we're going to get on here and talk a little Packers as we're getting ready for joint practice tomorrow with the Indianapolis Colts. It's going to be really, really exciting to see all the updates that come out of there. As far as tonight's show, we're going to be giving you a Jayden Reed update. Adam Schefter actually spilled a little bit of information earlier today. And, you know, it's nothing like over the top, but maybe gives us a little bit more insight into the injury and who we think that information may have came from. We're going to do a quick little deep dive on the offensive depth chart, kind of talk about maybe what has or has not changed in the camp battles at specific positions. We'll do the same thing on defense. Then we're going to get into a little chalk talk and break down just, 5 or 6 of my favorite plays from the Jets preseason game there, week 1 at Lambeau against your Green Bay Packers. Before we do that, though, I need you guys to do that YouTube stuff for us. Hit like, hit subscribe. It's free, it's fast, it's easy. If you're new here, hey, welcome into PTA. We appreciate you making us a part of your evening. If you're looking for Packers daily content, feel free to hit subscribe, hit like, and make sure you click that bell icon so you get notified every time we go live. We're not experts here. We're not insiders. What we are is fans like you breaking down the Packers on a daily basis. So with that being said, everybody doing all right tonight? Gents, we good?
Yes, sir.
Yeesh.
All right, let's dive into it, man. Let's waste no time. Let's see if we can get the show done before Emilio comes dragging in here late. You want
Perfect.
to?
Yep.
As soon as he logs on, we'll go, all right, guys, we'll see you later. So, all right, so here's the news of the day. I was listening earlier today. I think it was, I want to say it was ESPN Milwaukee, I think it was, that had Adam Schefter on. And they said Adam Schefter had kind of spilled the beans a little bit on Jayden Reed's injury. He referred to it, and I just put a tweet out here. As you can see, Jayden Reed there doing push-ups in the walking boot. Per Adam Schefter, Jayden Reed has a strained foot and is expected to play week 1, info that most likely came from Jayden's agent. I just wanted to specify that, right? Because the team isn't going to leak those details out. Right. So who gave Adam Schefter that information? Probably Jayden Reed's camp. Now, when the team leaks info out sometimes on an injury, you're kind of putting pressure on the player like, hey, you need to get back on the field. You know what I mean? That type of thing. I always think back to, I'm trying to think of who it was, Tim. They played running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it was Fred Taylor, I believe. I think it was Fred Taylor. And he was injured. And I remember their head coach at the time was Tom Coughlin, way back in the expansion days, right?
Yep.
And he came out and said, "Yeah, he's good to go. He'll be ready to go this week." And I'm pretty sure it was Fred Taylor, because people started calling him Fragile Fred after that. Believe it or not, what happened was Coach Coughlin put that pressure on him, and he said behind the scenes he wasn't ready, and it really pissed him off. So that's why teams. One of many reasons why they're a little hesitant getting the information out. I think this was Jayden Reed's camp putting that info out like, hey, we're going to be ready to go week 1, if that makes sense. So
I thought it was why they said strain and not sprain or anything super serious, right?
Bingo.
You ever wake up in the morning and stretch out and then you feel that arch under your foot just lock up?
Yep.
Every day.
Strain, and hey, it's Bird. He's a pro wide receiver. They're going to take every precaution necessary and put him in a boot and take it easy. I think it's exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, right.
And I would expect him ready.
I was hoping Holmes would be in here so we could get a doc's opinion here. He said it's often an arch sprain.
There you go, the arch. Yep.
If you have any more information you want to share in the chat, go right ahead, Holmes. But I think this is great news. Obviously, when you seen the walking boot, Jacob, I immediately thought, oh gosh, what do we got here? You know what I mean? Do we, like Tim said, do we have a sprain? Do we have a partial tear of something? Do we have a bone crack? What's going on? You know what I mean?
And then Jacob's over here like,
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Well, I don't know. I did go to school for 7 years, but I don't have a degree. No,
Just
I
a tip, though.
You didn't get the diploma either, did you?
No, I did not. No, it's obviously not. it doesn't build a lot of confidence if we got guys that are in walking boots. But when you take a step back, maybe you realize it's not that it was clickbait or overreaction, but I think some of the fans maybe are having a little bit of an overreaction. I saw on one of the Facebook groups, or whatever, they had a list of, the Packers, quote unquote, Packers star players that are injured. And are they guys? They're just, most of them are just guys that are known injuries, more precaution than anything else. Guys that'll be playing week 1, if not sooner, type stuff. And then, you look at the comments and it's the sky is falling type stuff. But I do think that, I still think that we're in a good spot. I'd be lying if I said that I wish that we had the guys out there. I wish I had Jordan there. I wish I had, everybody just getting on the same page, building that continuity. But it's a little too early to pull the panic button to push the panic button, I should say, in my opinion. So
I agree. Holmes MD1 says that, or the dorsal forefoot. All right. And then he went on to say the dorsal forefoot can also be frequently sprained. The strip club doesn't count, Jacob.
Yes, it does.
And then Chet says Jacob sprains his arch on the pole. I think he meant his arse on the pole. I could be wrong.
That reminds me, I got to file that workman's comp suit. That's.
I wouldn't doubt it one bit, man. I would not doubt it one bit. All right, man. Let's.
Speaking of workman's comp, here's a guy.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That's a clean AI image.
That's really good. Yeah,
most of them don't look that good.
I mean, it's not AI; it's real.
Very smooth. Very smooth.
They got the Big Mac. We got the Big Mick.
There you go. So again, just wanted to kind of give an update on that. I thought that was interesting information. I didn't see anybody else really talking about it. To me, it was good. Maybe that's why they're not talking about it. It's good news, right? We know how that goes. Unless the sky's falling, you know what I mean? They're not really talking much about the Packers. So anyway, I'll be talking about his fro, Chuck. What's wrong with you, sir? Got it. All right. So anything else on Jayden Reed? You guys, anything else you want to add before we move on to the offensive side of the ball, start deep diving the step chart, camp battle?
No, I mean, what do you think, Tim, just about the fact that I did not expect to have such confidence in our wide receiver room with injuries and guys not practicing because of how great Matthew Golden looks so quickly. Like, I thought it would take some time. I thought it would take half a year and maybe even kind of be a red shirt type year, but it seems like, and obviously we don't want any sorts of injuries, but God forbid if something happens to 1, 2, or 3 of these guys, I still have a lot of confidence in the players we have left in that room.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think it's just, the fact that Matthew Golden is the polished dude that he is. I mean, that took us, by surprise in the sense that normally you don't expect a rookie to be that good coming into training camp.
Right.
The fact that he is an awesome silver lining considering the guys that we have that are kind of banged up. We have another rookie in Savion Williams who's been kind of banged up, but we know he's talented and, brings us depth. You can look 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 down the list, and there's guys that can flash. I've brought up Will Shepherd more than once on this podcast. I mean, there's depth in this wide receiver room. So I don't think it's just Matt Golden, but I think it's just, a testament to what Goody and the boys did to make sure we have talent here, because injuries are a part of the game. They're going to happen. You can't be in a position where, you lose 1 or 2 guys and your whole season's out the window. You got to have talent. So I would agree with that. I feel pretty good.
Yeah, the big thing for me too is, when you've got these injuries, I'm not concerned with these guys not making it back week 1. But like many people have been talking about here lately, and I know Coach LaFleur was asked about it in the presser, I believe by Jason Wilde, if I remember correctly. This kind of affects your improvement. You know what I mean? Like you as a team being able to do the stuff you need to do to be able to run what am I trying to say here? The saturation of specific plays, specific sets to get your quarterback in a good spot. Well, your quarterback's out, right? Well, when the quarterback's missing and maybe Malik Willis can't do exactly what Jordan does, you can't create the timing between Jordan Love and Matthew Golden with Malik Willis, if that makes sense, right?
So you do that, you're going to get your ass kicked in that.
That's exactly right. Yep. It's going to kind of throw a wrench into the whole process. And on top of that, when you're going into each preseason game and you're releasing another level of install, just like joint practices tomorrow, I guarantee you, Matt LaFleur, when we went into week 1 of training camp, he had these joint practices already laid out. Like, we're going to hit this, and this. Well, now you're without your quarterback. You're without several different starters. That changes the whole dynamic. It really does.
Real quick before we move on, I have to highlight Mr. Donovan Schilling says, I checked out for like a month. He says, you'll be honest to me, Jen. Did I really get called for a giveaway?
You did, Donovan. You did.
You did, Donovan. Multiple for like a week.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Rich Beck got your card, bro.
Sorry.
Sit your butt outside.
I think we're going to stop doing the multi-winners for that reason, because in the past I've had people reach out like a month later and I'm like, okay, let me find something to give them too, so we'll probably just start announcing one winner. If they don't come forward in a certain amount of time, we'll throw it back into the rotation. But
Jen just says, yep.
Donovan over there like this, like, what the hell? So Donovan, we'll see if we can find you something here, man. Are you I can't believe we're doing this live on the air. If you're on Patreon, shoot me a message. If you're a YouTube member, shoot me an email, okay? Or a text, 865-658-5824. All right? That's Tim's home phone number there, by the way. So.
Yeah, but I only answer between the hours of 9:59 a.m. and 10 a.m. So make sure you call right within that window. Exactly.
Before we jump into the depth chart here, let me hit this question real quick from our Patreon group. And this came in from Randy Cleavers. Kind of goes hand in hand with what we were just talking about. I know it's preseason, and that's not the team or scheme we are marching out. I am seeing the same problems that plagued us last season: drops, penalties, and no pressure. Should we be concerned? Well, the pressure thing I disagree with, Randy. I think we got plenty of pressure last year, personally. I think the defense played great. They were borderline top 5, overall. But in terms of the drops and penalties, I don't think you're overreacting at all, man. I think that's a valid point. You continue doing the same, making the same mistakes over and over and over. Sooner or later, you got to step back and go, all right, what do we need to do different? Now, it is preseason. We're always going to mention that, right? So if this carries into week 1, week 2, we look up, Tim, if we look up in week 1 or week 2 and we got a ton of penalties, then I'm going to be fully on board with what Randy said here, because
concerned won't be the word, right? Pissed off and irritated and frustrated will be the word.
Here's the problem with it for me, Tim, is people immediately blame the coaches, right? Yep. Now, I'm not saying Randy's doing that, but most fans, would y'all agree, most fans are like, these coaches don't have this team ready to go.
Yep.
Yeah. Fire Joe Barry, right?
Yeah. I find myself falling back a little bit and going, okay, I agree. It is the coach's job to get them ready, but at what point do we hold a professional athlete accountable for not grabbing a jersey? Like, how many times do you when you say a coach doesn't have them ready, the only way I could approve of that stance, fire Joe Bear, there you go, Don.
Fire Bo Jerry. I love it.
The only way I could agree with that stance is if they weren't working on technique. Tim, are they working on technique in training camp?
I've seen it with my eyes several times.
So, and again,
one would go as far as to say they're stressing fundamental technique in hand placement and footwork and, stab and grab, don't hold, these kind of things. So, yeah, I would agree.
And then, let's talk about the drops, Jacob. When you blame the coaches for the drops, to me, it's like, okay, are the coaches telling them to not catch the football?
Yeah.
Are they not spending enough time on reps? Are they, you know what I'm saying? And here's the thing. Romeo Dobbs got some of the best hands on the team, right? He had a couple maybe drops. Maybe there was one drop, however you want to count it from the other night. But nonetheless.
I just caught the ball.
You didn't, Rome.
I hear that. I got to wait for it to hit. I'm like, what? Wait. So he got some of the best hands on the team. What did he do to fix the drops his rookie year? He stayed after practice on the jugs machine. Right. So it's like, I tend to give the coaches a little more grace. Now, if I turn on the tape on Sunday, if I sit down and watch a game Sunday and I go back and watch the tape, Jacob, and I see lazy scheme, I see, boy, they got out coached from a schematic standpoint, that's where I fall back more on the coaches as opposed to, it's like these coaches need to get these players tougher.
Yeah.
So a coach, it's Rich Bisaccia's job to make sure Rasheed Walker is tough enough to not get his ass kicked by the right defensive end. I just can't subscribe to that. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, I agree. And I actually went back and watched the day after press conferences for Hafley and LaFleur, and both of them highlighted, like, if you want to talk about the drops, LaFleur brought it up point blank. He says, he kind of echoed what I can't remember who just made the comment there, but said, the drops aren't cool. Like they're just not going to fly. And the same thing with the penalties, the boneheaded stuff. He then went on to say, though, there was certain things that they did that scheme wise that they probably just had some brain farts. And he even admitted there was probably some coaching errors or just ways that they either shouldn't have called certain formations or plays in certain circumstances that kind of put them not in a great position. What I thought was even more telling than that was listening to Jeff Hafley, who, by the way, is just such a great interview. He actually takes time. If he doesn't understand the question, he won't just bypass it. He'll actually have them clarify. There you go, buddy. And one of the things he said, they said, were you happy with the way that basically the way you played? He said, no, not really. Like we had so much more aggressiveness, so much more ball hawking, so much more like Tim said, stabbing, just ripping, wrapping rips, that kind of stuff. He said that intensity was off the charts in practice. And then he went on to say, for whatever reason, we didn't show up in the game, and we have to go back as coaches and figure out why we did not have, why that didn't come to fruition. And so it is on one end, I understand people want to blame the coaches because it's easy, I think. And you don't really have to, put yourself out there and go on a record the same as when it's a player, because players are so up and down. You know what I mean? They could have bad years, good stints, bad stints. Whereas coaches are just easier to kind of throw under the bus and say, this guy sucks as a coach, let's get rid of him. So I think that it's still very early. So I think what he said is true, but we always say it on this podcast, see something, say something. Let's nip it in the bud before it gets to a worse point.
Yeah. One final point I want to make, Tim. I'm going to get your take on this, then we'll move on to the offensive depth chart. The person I feel like always gets off scot-free in this situation when you're talking penalties, drops, all these things, would those two things not be a byproduct of a young football team?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Procedural penalties and turning your head before you secure the catch kind of stuff. There's never anybody talking about
the fact that we continue to build a team that's arguably the youngest team in the league. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I'm the only one that says it, and I catch a lot of heat for it. And maybe it's justified. I don't know. But I just always come back to that. There's just a couple of reasons, or really there's three reasons. You're either not, coaching it up, right? The player isn't good enough to accomplish that technique, or they're young and inexperienced and have to get used to that level of technique, so.
I agree. And the responsibility you put on the coaches is to have the guys ready for the game, right? Mm-hmm. So if the guys are worked all week in practice, you're instilling these things, and then that player doesn't execute, and then that coach allows that player to continue to go out onto the field, maybe you have an argument about coaching, right? Guys are making mistakes, you're not holding them accountable. I don't see that here. I see every time a guy messes up at practice, I see him being pulled back over, started over, do it again. So I think there's an emphasis in that building, to correct these mistakes as we identify them, not let them hang around, linger around, like we said, going into week 1 or week 2 of the season, and we're still having the same issues. Same thing with drops. Hey, guys, receivers drop footballs. It happens. What you're looking for is a guy to catch more than he drops, right? And we also need to realize that there's a difference between a drop pass and great defense. And if you got a DB draped over you, you got a quarterback throwing that ball into a tight window, your hands get on it, the defender's hand gets there at the same time. That's called a PBU. It's not a drop. Please stop criticizing these receivers for every little thing that happens out there on the field. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I know that the one that drove me crazy was the Jayden Reed drop against the Vikings, where he went full extension to try to catch the inaccurate pass, and there's Jayden Reed dropping passes.
And he basically caught it. He did catch it, but the momentum in the ground, like he's a human being. What are you going to do, right?
Yeah. Holmes MD1 says they are indeed young, Clay, but they have played a fair amount of pro ball. That's a very fair point, Holmes. It is. Yeah. Donovan Schilling says, quit being logical, Clayton. Drew D, yep, you should only be this young if you're rebuilding, not when you're making a run. And that's the thing too, Drew. Like I'm trying to check myself a little bit here, because we did add a few veterans, right? And I love that direction, but you lose Jair. So there's one of your top 5 veterans at least, right? That's now out the door. So you lose him, you bring on a couple. It feels like we did get a little bit older this year. However, you look at some of the teams that do make the run, and you see them put pieces in place for sure.
It's tough, right? You don't want to be too old, and you don't want to be too young, right? You gotta do that dance constantly.
And I agree with what Goody says too. It's a young man's game. It is, man. Coach Lynn says that's not an excuse anymore, or we should change strategy. I agree with that too. Like at some point, you got to go, okay, maybe we need to press a little more into the veteran side as opposed to the youth. Like put us right in the middle. Put us the 15th oldest team. You know what I mean? That
feels
there. Yeah,
we're getting there, right? We got guys in their third year now. You know, guys we were excited about, right?
Yeah,
I am too, Tim. I'm getting over. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, no, Jen Wright says kind of the same thing. Young but experience. I could tell the chat is basically on that where we don't want to hear that as an excuse as a fan base. And I think Matt LaFleur actually did say that as well in that press conference. That like, yeah, we're the youngest team, but we're not going to use that as a scheme or as an excuse anymore. He did also go on to say real quick that he goes, this is not an excuse. I'm not making excuses for the guys and how they played on Saturday, but he goes, we did not implement much of a game plan. We just we were very vanilla. Nothing. I mean, obviously they do that in most preseason games or all preseason games, but he said it sounded like that they had even less that they wanted to show kind of thing. So,
right. And that's the thing too, is like when we do this chalk talk here in a minute, notice it's not going to be like when I do a normal chalk talk throughout the season, I try to find you guys the 10 plays that impacted the game the most, right? I may not show you an explosive run. Like there may be like a 40-yard explosive run by Josh Jacobs that doesn't make the cut because we end up punting on that drive and it didn't lead to anything. It didn't, it may have helped the stats, and that's why it's important not to just box score watch. But I'm looking for those plays that truly have an impact on the game. When it comes to preseason, you're looking at one-on-one matchups is essentially what you're looking for, right? Same thing with the joint practice tomorrow. So let's take a look at the offensive depth chart real quick. That sound good, fellas? I just want to we may skip over some of these kind of quick, and that's okay. But Chuck Jack Emilio's playing Madden on rookie and got Glover at left. I think he's got Glover at quarterback.
I think he's got Glover in an arm bar right now, giving him a hug.
So some of these positions we'll just kind of gloss over. What I want to do is get an updated feel of, all right, what camp battles have really heated up, and maybe if someone has leapfrogged one or the other. And I kept the old depth charts for this very reason, so just in case our lads did change it. I'll get it updated tomorrow. Let's just take a quick look, and if there's somebody that's not on the depth chart, you guys call them out. Let's start at quarterback, although I think we agree with how this is played out, right? Jordan Love going to be your starter. He'll be ready week one, even with the thumb. Malik Willis is your backup. It's going to be between Sean Clifford and Taylor Elgersma to go to the practice squad. I know Tim feels pretty comfortable about Sean Clifford being on the practice squad over Elgersma, right? That could change. For me, nothing has changed there. I would still lean toward Clifford as our practice squad QB. If you want to, let Taylor Elgersma go or keep him on the practice squad, I can understand the value of carrying two there. However, for me, I feel like it's still Sean Clifford ahead of him. That could change. I just didn't see anything last weekend.
I agree, but you're kind of rooting for Air Canada, right? Like, the big red dog is getting up there in years, slowly but surely. We love him. He's reliable. I agree. I believe that he's our practice squad quarterback. Especially considering they're probably only going to carry one on the practice squad. But in the next couple of weeks, man, if Air Canada goes off and starts flashing hard, there could be a legit argument to make him that guy, that third quarterback, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. What do you think, Jacob? How do you feel? Anything you want to add there to the quarterback room, I should say?
Man, I Jen Wright agrees with Tim real quick, just saying, give me some Air Canada right there. It's tough for me to really say because I really do believe that when they had Clifford in mind with the draft, it was for him to really help the process of the maturation of Jordan Love, and the fact that he had so many snaps, so many reps, got to be in a very potent offense, high caliber college being Penn State. And I think Elgersma just may have seemingly a higher ceiling with a unknown ceiling, I guess I should say, with a floor where we know where it's at. And being that there could be a little bit of injuries in the beginning of the year, they might want to have somebody like Clifford that just has a little more experience, more steady Eddie, more years under his belt. But I'm all for it. I want the best. As much as I'd love to be loyal to that big red dog, and I love him, I really do. I thought he's came in, gave us some great preseason moments where we looked like Brett Favre Jr. out there just slinging it. But going forward, I do want to make sure that we put the best team out there. And obviously, if your quarterback is lacking, the team's going to suffer. So whatever right. Guy, like Tim said, by the beginning of week 1, whoever is slinging that tater real good, I want to have them in.
He was the best guy around.
Let's move on to running back here. All right, running back. Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, all 3, as long as they're healthy, they will be a lock for the roster. My question is, who do you have as your 4th best running back on this football team right now? Has someone passed Chris Brooks? Is it still Chris Brooks? And if it is Chris Brooks, who do you have right after that? I'll start with you, Tim. What's your take on this one? If you're ready.
Well, we got to adjust, right? We had a release.
Correct.
Jalen White, correct? Okay, so I'm with you, Clay. It's JJ, Emmanuel Wilson, Marshawn Lloyd, Chris Brooks. After Chris Brooks, it's between Amar Johnson and
Abanikanda.
Yeah, Abanikanda has flashed. Amar Johnson has flashed. Again, a testament to our front office and the effort they put in to constantly cycle in talent into these rooms, so that when we have a guy that's got an injury or two, it's next man up. It sounds like a cliche at this point, but it's true. That's what football is. There's 53 guys on that active roster for a reason. And like Jacob says, you got to get your best available, and availability can change week to week, day to day, hour by hour sometimes. So I would say Chris Brooks is still that dude, followed by probably Amar Johnson has a slight edge over Izzy Abanikanda, I think.
Yeah, like what Clint says here too. He said, "I'll say after preseason." Amen to that, right?
Yep, great point. Yeah, let's have this conversation in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, and what we're doing is basically every week we're kind of resetting the stage. All right, what changed? You know what I mean? That type of thing. So for me personally, Jacob, I like Amar Johnson over Chris Brooks based off what we've seen so far. However, I don't think Matt LaFleur likes Amar Johnson over Chris Brooks. So I think if I had to predict today, Chris Brooks would be the 4th one if they carried a 4th. But me personally, I would like to see Amar Johnson. He really flashed to me. And we're talking about bouncing off tackles, cutting it back across the field. He was people forget too, Jacob, that there was I want to say there was at least one explosive run. There might have been 2 that got called back on holding too.
Yep. Correct.
And in the words of Emilio, who's just joining us,
he can block. Absolutely can block, and that's what I have. That's what I love about Chris Brooks.
Yeah. One thing that I would maybe push back on, or not push back on, but I agree with Clayton, and in the chat, a lot of people said that there's no way that LaFleur is going to let Chris Brooks go. He just trusts him too much. I think he might be like, teacher's pet kind of guy thing. And I really do think that we could get Izzy and Amar on the practice squad. But I will say Matt LaFleur was one of the few high praises he had in that press conference post game was when he was talking about Izzy returning kicks and how he loved the way that he was able to see those small gaps and just be fearless and shoot that and absolutely kind of take advantage of those reps. I think he returned 4 or 5 kicks at least, and they didn't want to see anybody else in that position. So that was kind of interesting to me. Maybe they just wanted to not risk any more injuries to guys that are a little more, further developed, but I would maybe just throw that out there, but I don't see us keeping more than 3, to be honest. I don't.
Mm-hmm. There's your new depth chart, by the way, if you guys want to read that off real quick as I rename it here. In terms of the running backs there, the changes, I should say.
So we've got Josh Jacobs, RB1, Emmanuel Wilson, 2, Marshawn Lloyd, 3, Chris Brooks, 4. We've got Izzy Abanikanda, and we've got, is it Tyrion, Davis Price would be at the outside looking in for now until this guy flashes too, and we got another guy to talk about, right?
Exactly. What about you, Amelia? You got anything you want to add to the running back room? Would you take Chris Brooks or Amar Johnson if you had to pick today? Which one you keep? You only keep one, man.
I'm keeping Chris Brooks, man, no doubt. He's too valuable right now as a piece. I don't think – I haven't seen, I guess, the other running backs, Amar Johnson, let alone, other backs, even Emmanuel Wilson, do the things that Chris Brooks does. They just ask him to do too many things. He's like our Kyle Juszczyk. If we had a fullback type guy, but that can also carry the ball, that's Chris Brooks, and a pony package with him is lethal.
I agree, and it's tough. Like when you analyze these guys, because a lot of our allegiance to Chris Brooks is what we saw on tape last year. We
Right.
saw how he filled in a pinch last year, and it's important that we know that, and we can't second guess that because it exists, it happened, it's on film. But it's 2025, and we're going into week 2 of the preseason here. It's about what you're doing now, and as much as I'd like to keep him around, if somebody else makes that leap, you have to make a decision, right? A tough one, but you got to make that decision.
I kind of feel like the chat is definitely Chris Brooks. Would y'all agree with that?
Yes.
Yeesh.
There you go.
Yeesh.
Right. So let's move on to wide receiver now. All right. From the top of the depth chart here, Romeo Dobbs, Matthew Golden, Jayden Reed. You notice that Matthew Golden has now all of a sudden leapfrogged up, right? Pretty cool. So those are your top 3. Then you've got Savion Williams, Dontavion Wicks, Christian Watson in the red. He'll start on pup, right? So you kind of got Savion and Dontavion Wicks in that second tier. And then you move along to Cornelius Johnson, Malik Heath, and McCole Hardman. Then you got Isaiah Nair, Will Shepard, Julian Hicks, and then Quan Baker. So when you look at this, if you were to say, all right, we're just keeping 5, what may or may not have changed last week? Because it was starting to feel like, for me, McCole Hardman was going to be a lock for the team. And after last week, I had to take a slight step back. Not a huge step back, but a slight step back. Emilio, muff punt, couple drops. It's a tough outing for McCole.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hope, like he was saying in his presser, he just kind of, it happened to happen. I'm going to move forward and keep moving on. I think that he's got that mentality. He's been there. He's been in the big game. He knows all that stuff. So I hope he does turn it around. But, yeah, you got 2 games left to prove it. I think you got to show up in whatever role they give you, what other options and plays you get.
No. What say you there, Jacob, with the wide receiver room here, man?
Yeah, Mecole definitely didn't do himself any favors, and Matt LaFleur even went to say that somebody asked him the question, like, how do you judge based on the small sample size of that one game that he's played in Green Bay versus what he's done over his career and how reliable he's been. We've talked about the Super Bowl visits, the last game touchdowns, last second touchdowns, and just him being an overall seemingly almost walking into a leadership role, trying to engage the community, just being an all-around good teammate. So much like the running back room, the whole point of this exercise is to see how it's changed. I think that if you're looking at maybe like he went down, he's in the red, maybe like 2 points kind of thing. With other guys, I think that maybe they went up and increased their chances. And we always talk about how it's tough to make the club in the tub. Wicks on the sideline, I think that spot's pretty much guaranteed. But you do have that kind of battle there between Malik Heath and McCole Hardman. I think Malik has been just steady Eddie, and hasn't. I think he maybe did have a drop as well, which I was surprised about because I remember him just always seeming to have kind of stronger, surer hands. But it's look at Robert Bertana says Hardman over Wicks. Whoa, he's going spicy. In. He's spicy. So I don't really know, man. I think that this is one of those that we have to reevaluate in week 2 and then again in week 3, and it's going to be real tough. And I hate to say it, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to be dictated by injuries.
Mm-hmm. Possibly. Tim? I think when you look at what, to your point, Jacob, you're right. If we're talking about that last spot, it's between McCole and Malik, right? At least at this point. And both of these guys did not have the best performances in their preseason debut on Saturday. All the more reason to keep your eye on number 6 and number 18 on Saturday in Indy. I fully expect both of these guys to bounce back and play extremely well on Saturday. And if they don't, or one of them doesn't, then you're right about those couple of notches up or down, right? If you put 2 weeks together where you're muffin punts or you're, dropping passes or you're, busted route or something, making a mistake. McCole talked about it at his locker, man. It's not about making mistakes. It's about, moving on, correcting them and going forward. And Saturday, we're going to get to see what that looks like because, we'll be a week removed from the game that we're all, overreacting to from last Saturday. So I still think it's between, McCole and Malik for that quote unquote last spot. But overall, you feel good about the depth we do have, right? Even guys like Cornelius Johnson, Will Shepard, Julian Hicks has flashed at times. Nayor had a great catch.
I like Nair, man. He looks good.
So you feel good. I'm not willing to go as far as I forgot who mentioned that in the chat about McCall over Wicks.
We had a couple. I got Reef who's saying the same thing here.
No. Assuming Tay Wicks is healthy. If we have a healthy Tay Wicks, the calf is proven not to be something, major or nagging, and he's able to be available and play. I think Tay Wicks is on this team for sure.
Yeah, for me, again, I can understand how someone would think McCole Hardman over Wicks based off of the performance last year. But same time, man, he's already shown his upside. And we know what McCole is. Here, the reality is Dontavion Wicks' rookie year, he showed us that's the player he can be, right? McCole Hardman has shown us his entire career the player he can be as well.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think what Wicks did his rookie year has far exceeded anything McColl's done throughout the course of his career, with the exception of the Super Bowl experience, right? And again, in the Super Bowls, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember a Super Bowl where he went absolutely off. He caught the game-winning touchdown, and that's huge, don't get me wrong. But I don't remember a game where he had like over 100 yards receiving and a couple tutters. I
think the big story with that Super Bowl run with him was the fact that he had just worked his way back into the fold in Kansas City, and it was such a great story that here's the guy that clawed tooth and nail to get back. Yeah, here's a guy. He
but again, I can
clawed his way back into that depth chart and caught a game winner in the Super Bowl. I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and I think it is worth taking into consideration with the people that are saying Hardman over Wicks. Wicks only did it 1 year, right?
That's true.
And his most recent year was bad. I say bad. I mean, if you trust PFF, he graded out a 65, which is pretty decent.
Well, we know how we feel about that number 65 in Green Bay, right?
65%.
65%. That's what all right. Let's hit this, and then we'll move on to tight end. We're kind of running behind here. 2-0 for this says Wicks has a high enough floor with the potential to reach
stratospheric.
That means to the moon we go. Let's get it.
I would have said to reach a high ceiling. You don't give up on that. I agree 2-0 for this. I would lean toward what 2-0 for this is saying. Wicks over Hardman personally, but tight end, we'll keep this real brief because obviously I think it's pretty straightforward. Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave. The big conversation is it seems like, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, based off what we seen last year in the playoff game, him kind of leapfrogging Ben Sims on the depth chart, him being John Fitzpatrick, and now what we're seeing early in camp, it does feel like John Fitzpatrick is the third tight end on this team, and both for the reason he can play H, I think, a little more effectively than Ben Sims can, and also he's been catching the football a little bit better than Ben Sims as well. Man, he surprised me with his ability in the passing game. I really did expect John Fitzpatrick to just be one of those guys that'll hit you in the mouth, as opposed to becoming a more well-rounded tight end. What do you guys think about that? And do you think maybe Messiah Swinson or Johnny Lumpkin has a chance to pass even Ben Sims up, much less John Fitzpatrick?
Yeah. Look, real quick, I loved both of these. I'm going to get made fun of. The tight end depth chart, I should say. I love the guys on the back end of it because you guys know I was a big Ben Sims guy. John Fitzpatrick has been a pleasant surprise, and I believe what Clayton says is kind of telling. That didn't they sit Sims in that game? They didn't even have him dress.
It's the way I remember it. Yeah, I remember they activated John Fitzpatrick and they sat Ben Sims. I was waiting for a DUI to be reported or something. I didn't know what.
And what's even better is
you're going to get your ass kicked in that.
Both of these guys are giants that have ridiculously high RASs, and like Clayton said, they're not just blocking tight ends, kind of inline types. These are pretty well-rounded tight ends. So I do think that we're going to keep one of the two. If you would have asked me 4 months ago, I would have said Ben Sims all the way. Now that the dust has kind of settled a little bit, I do think that Fitzpatrick is just, for whatever reason, even if it's just that LaFleur likes him a little better, Goody, has a better relationship with him. I don't know what it is, but I feel like the thumb is on the scale just a little bit for Fitzpatrick.
I would agree with that statement based on what we've seen so far, right? And he looked a little better in special teams too, not missing blocks and getting people's skull blown up. So that's good to see. I think it's more telling what's going on with Messiah Swinson and Johnny Lumpkin. So if either one of those guys flashes enough to maybe take that last spot or that fourth spot from Ben Sims, then maybe we'll have that conversation. But I feel like it looks good how it is. Tuck Norris, Luke Musgrave, Fitzpatrick, and Ben Sims. That's your 4.
Is there anybody in the chat that could give us the RAS for Lumpkin and Swinson? Because I have to think it's drastically different than those other 2 that we just talked about.
I would say it probably is too.
I'd be willing to bet Ben Sims has a higher RAS than both of them.
Yeah, Ben Sims was through the roof the way
I thought he was a high 9 or at least a high 8. Yeah.
Yep. I think so. All right, let's until we get that in the chat there, let's move on to offense. Well, Emilio, you got anything to add to tight end? Anything at all, man?
John Fitzpatrick, 6'7", 220 or 260. I'm sorry.
Thick.
And he played at Georgia. I think it all just kind of leads to, hey, this is a dog he does not afraid of the battle. I think that he's really worked himself onto the 53. Honestly, I think he's put in that work.
Yeah, there you go. All right, offensive line. Here you go. Lumpkin 6'4", RAS, 4.840 for Lumpkin. So, all right, appreciate it. Offensive line. Starting according to our lads, Rasheed Walker left tackle, Aaron Banks left guard, Elton Jenkins center, Sean Ryan right guard, Zach Tom right tackle. Now, you guys know Jordan Morgan is really starting to pick up steam for that left tackle spot. We'll see once Rasheed Walker gets healthy who wins this battle. If I had to pick a couple of talking points on the offensive line, and then we'll kick it over to you this time, Emilio, first. Looking at the offensive line, the 2 big changes for me this past week is Jordan Morgan kind of skyrocketing to the top after that performance against the Jets, played really, really well at left tackle. And Jacob Monk is he a center or not? And I don't feel comfortable at all saying Jacob Monk can be an effective guard based off what we've seen to this point. But it kind of feels like Sean Ryan's now the backup center, and Jacob Monk just kind of doesn't have a place yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think we were kind of hitting on that last night. I much rather have Sean, Ryan there at backup center, and honestly, third center would be Zach Tom for me. I don't even want Monk hopping in at that point. He just hasn't really shown what I think we might need as the center, and he's really just not getting the opportunities. Like the team itself isn't really putting him in those positions when they needed a guy. At the end of last year, it wasn't Monk. It was my boy. When they needed somebody else, they go to different options when Monk's name should be called. So I think that's kind of the hang up there.
Yeah, definitely. Fellas, offensive line, any other storylines here that maybe catch your attention? I know Anthony Belton, I felt like he played pretty decent in the amount of snaps we've seen there on Saturday as well.
Escalade. Future looks bright for Escalade. We talk about, rookies being polished. We're talking about Matthew Golden looking great. I think Anthony Belton looks pretty good for a first-year guy. Obviously raw, but definitely shows that he could be a valuable piece on that O-line. I think with Jacob Monk, I agree with Emilio's point. It's like, yeah, I'd rather see Sean Ryan snapping the ball before Jacob Monk. And I don't know how in love I am with Jacob Monk at either of the guard positions for that matter. So we could see a little bit of leapfrogging here on the O-line. We got Lacita Smith in the mix. We got Trey Hill. There's talent in the room to move around. And this is the time of year that they're going to move these guys around. And like Jacob always says, right? Best 5, right? We want the best 5 out there, regardless of where they're playing, as long as it's the best 5 on that O-line. So I would keep an eye on some of those other guys, in the mix right now.
Yeah, actually, to that same vein here, I tried, aka the Love Boat Captain. He said, could Tom move to right guard or left tackle if Belton keeps shining at right tackle? And not that he wants that, I'm sure, but if it is the fact that
could he? Absolutely, he can play anywhere on that line.
Do you see any sort of situation? I mean, obviously with injuries, that'd probably be to me the most likely case. Only with injury, I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Because he's just been such a steady Eddie at right tackle. It's hard to want to mess with that. But like you said, I personally am over the moon with how Belton and Morgan played this last game. And for those of us that were kind of scratching our heads with that first and second round pick, I should say, it's very encouraging to see the way that they've kind of performed when the spotlight was on them.
Yeah, based off what Matt LaFleur said, I think there's there's more of a chance that Belton would play at right guard than Tom moving from right tackle to right guard. And again, it comes down to getting your best 5 out there. And as we always say too, when it comes to camp and preseason and getting ready for that initial 53-man roster, most of these decisions, unfortunately, are going to be made from an injury. We know how that goes. So,
right. Yeah. And it was either move the sticks or GM shuffle. They were talking about every team that wants 5 tackles out there, right? We're kind of getting past the point of needing specifically guards. They were saying you want athletic, O linemen with good feet that can handle that. That if you have a big tackle, fine. They were talking about if the previous worry was having a big tackle and being able to get him pushed off, losing his base, not having a good center of gravity, and being able to get that upfront push. But they're saying now that the ball's coming out so quickly, times are sort of changing. That's why you saw Mekhi Becton do pretty decent with the Eagles last year. He's 6'7", 6'8", something like that. So I think if we can, get Belton used to right tackle, if you can do right tackle, you're probably better off. You probably can handle right guard if we needed you to in a pinch, because you're wide open on the right side versus you have a buddy to your right and left. I think it's a possibility. And the way he road grades, man, that would be a wild right side of the line.
Yeah. All right. That's going to do it for hour 1 in your offensive depth chart kind of outlook here from the last week as we get ready for the joint practice there against the Colts. We'll see you on the other side for hour 2, where we're going to hit on the defensive side of the depth chart. We appreciate y'all.